Something smells foul in Tampa Bay. It's a lingering stench, the kind that doesn't clean off easily. One that sticks to anything around it, permeating and penetrating any surface it comes in contact with. The Rays have long had issues with their on-field product, but it's not because of performance. The team itself has thrived, in spite of executive avariciousness. Forced to adapt to a shoestring budget, they've been on the cutting edge of baseball for a while now. Shrewd trades, excellent player development, and pieces that fit the needs of the team have made them into a legitimate contender. This past season, they had a 100-win season to lead the American League. Players like Wander Franco are about to revolutionize the game. And the forward-thinking Rays were one step ahead by rewarding him with an incredible 11-year contract that should match its value quickly. There is no evidence that the Rays will be falling off anytime soon, and they should be respected for that. But this foundation masks a deep scar. Despite these bountiful harvests, people haven't shown up in support. It's been their core issue for a long time. Former franchise face Evan Longoria publicly came out and said the Rays fan base doesn't give a shit. Even during their World Series run in 2008, they were only averaging about 24,000 people a game. This past year, despite Florida opening up and ending capacity limits early, the Rays still had the third lowest attendance of any team in the league. The number of sold tickets has cratered to 9,500 per game. And how many of those buying are opposing fans are anyone's guess. During the playoff push in mid-August, only 5,000 people showed up on average in a weekday series against Baltimore. Heading into the final week of the year, they hovered around 10,000 fans a game against Toronto, and had trouble cracking 20,000 fans on average in a weekend series against Miami. Things have gotten so dire that the Rays couldn't sell out Game 1 of the ALDS, as the AL's leader in wins, and when making a World Series the previous year. All that effort just to get the stands 2/3 full. Game 2 was closer to a sellout, but that may have been because fans from Boston made the trip down. They never got another chance after that, and that may have been for the best. Here's the major issue I have with their attendance woes. This is a good baseball team. The fact that they're still having trouble filling Tropicana Field despite it is absolutely disturbing. On the surface, it's an easy call. Tampa Bay's not a baseball market. They're fair-weather fans, and Stu Sternberg is justified in trying to move the team. But that's a cop-out. You need to dig deeper. About a foot. Simply look at the location of where they play. There is no argument from anyone that Tropicana is a dump. It's a soulless cavern that harkens back to the dull domes of the 80s, where AstroTurf and ACL tears were the norm. It's been consistently ranked as one of the worst stadiums in baseball for God knows how long. And nobody's coming there for an experience. Ownership's argument is concise. They need a new stadium. If they don't get it here, they'll get it elsewhere. They're hemorrhaging money due to it. Ignore that revenue sharing all but covers most costs the Rays accrue over a season, but they could be making more. Once again, on the surface, it's an easy assumption to make that fans don't care about the Rays. If they had, people would still show up to games because the team is good. But I want to ask you a question. Are you familiar with where Tropicana Field is? It's not located in the major population center of Tampa, but its sister city in St. Petersburg, which is not only lesser in terms of the amount of people living there, but also average income. Think of it like having a team representing Dallas, but them playing in Fort Worth. Now, if the stadium were relatively easy to get to, it wouldn't be much of a problem, but they're on a coastline with a base sandwiched in between cities. Not to mention that Tropicana is near the southernmost tip of the peat with no way to get to it in any other direction. Unless you want to spend hours on buses, public transit is off the table. The only way to get between cities is by car on 3 bridges. The major one being the Howard Franklin Bridge, a 4-laner that would be ideal if not for major construction taking place on it until 2025. It's not affecting it for now, but there may be eventually some pain due to it. The others are Gandy Bridge to the south, a 2-lane overpass on both sides, and the Courtney Campbell Bridge to the north, a 4-laner that's used more for a connection to Clearwater, not St. Petersburg. Let's suppose you wanted to leave from your office in downtown Tampa for a game during rush hour. That's at least a half-hour drive, if you're lucky. If you're further up in a suburb like Citrus Park, Oldsmar, or Land O'Lakes, it might be up to 45 minutes on an average day. And that's not considering traffic near the Trop being more intense during game days. Would you want to drive that long to get there? Not to mention traffic trying to leave, it's no surprise few have shown up during the regular season. The solution has been clear for a while. This team needs to move. I'm in agreement there, but it's not to another city. The Rays belong in downtown Tampa. The Buccaneers and Lightning are there and have had little trouble filling up seats when they're good. Tampa is a passionate sports city, and I believe they'll support the Rays if they're closer to their main population centers. There was a proposal in the works for a new stadium in Ybor City a few years ago, which would have been perfect not only for fans in Tampa, but potential corporate interests as well. But then you look at the proposed design of the stadium itself. I'm going to give you some time to figure out what's wrong with this from the get-go. Have you figured it out yet? It's a glass dome in the middle of Florida. Do you have any idea how much they're going to be spending not just in maintenance but in HVAC costs? They'd have serious problems trying to maintain temperature with such a design. Then there was the whole question of who the hell was going to pay for it. Not good when a project falls through before it can even get off the ground. We must also consider the St. Petersburg dilemma. They are really goddamn petty when it comes to the Rays. Like the kid who sees the shiny toy at the store, they cling onto it and pout until they get the response they want. The Rays are locked into a lease at Tropicana until 2027, and have refused to budge on a compromise to appease them, which is obviously great news for all the baseball-hungry fans in Tampa. So with all sides of this conflict caught up in a dick-measuring contest, it seems like Sternberg and company threw their hands in the air and decided that they didn't want to try that hard on a solution. It's now allegedly impossible for them to keep the Rays in the area full-time. But St. Petersburg won't let them out of their lease early. So the answer is to simply fence it. They want to go halfsies with another city. As much as I want to laugh at it outright, I'll give it some consideration. I guess it could work if it's done properly. There may be some benefit to potentially expanding the regional brand in a place like Orlando or Jacksonville. Perhaps sharing with a potential suitor for a major league team. Say Nashville, or Charlotte, or even someplace like San Antonio. No, those options would make too much sense. For their plan, they're choosing Montreal. This is quite possibly the dumbest scheme I've heard in a long time, and it's not just because of the half-city model. Do they have any idea what kind of bullshit Montreal had to put up with when the Expos were there? With how many times baseball itself has fucked over the city? Decades of god-awful ownership that blew up the team every chance it got? Repeated failures on the field? They've been railroaded so hard that Montrealers abandoned the sport like it had abandoned them. The scars of 1994 run deep, and I don't know if they've even considered forgiving MLB for robbing them of a playoff run. I bet they remember the league nearly contracting the franchise out of mere convenience very fondly. Oh yes, I forgot that was after they rewarded their previous owner that ran them into the ground with another team to ruin. With how cheap the Expos were in their previous iterations, you want me to seriously consider the viability of a team as spendthrift as the Rays up there? I'm gonna tell you what'll happen if they're not stupid. The city will spit in their faces. Where are they gonna play? They certainly can't go back to Olympic Stadium. If they thought Tropicana was bad, oh boy are they in for a rude awakening. That place was terrible for baseball when it opened. What else do they do? Mold Molson Stadium into a baseball field? A hostile takeover of Park Jarry from the clutches of tennis? There are grumblings of a new stadium near the waterfront, but is it going to get built for a half-season team with no links to the city? The only way Montreal will accept baseball again is if the Expos come back full-time in a new stadium. Anything else will be seen as a two-bit floozy. The Rays brass will ramble about how this is an innovative and groundbreaking enterprise, but it honestly isn't. This half-season jet setting has been done before. When the Cincinnati Royals moved to Kansas City in 1972, they didn't have a viable NBA stadium. So their idea was to spend half the year in KC and the other part in Omaha, Nebraska in a larger arena. They were called the Kansas City Omaha Kings. The arrangement only lasted until 1975 when the Kings got a new arena in KC itself. And it wasn't done as a vain attempt at blackmail, it was done out of necessity. And what about Montreal in 2003? They had to deal with the same damn situation themselves, when the Expos played half a season in goddamn Puerto Rico. They got more support there than in Montreal, but that was because they had great Latin American players on the team at the time. And San Juan was hoping for a more full-time arrangement. And what about Tampa Bay? What about the corporate interests there? Are they going to properly invest in a team that's only going to be there for half a season? If they do, it'll be at a much reduced rate than what they may be paying now. Note that I haven't talked about any corporations in Montreal yet. They'd have different demands than those in Tampa would have, and it would just create a tug of war in terms of culture clash. So they're not only going to get less corporate funding from every suitor, the Rays would have to sell them on trying to share an identity when Tampa and Montreal are as different as milk and rock. Their only similarity is that they're in the same damn time zone. The Rays speak in ultimatums, as if this half-baked scheme is the only way the team is going to remain in Tampa altogether, but I see right through it. You're not as smart as you think you are still. We know what you're trying to pull. You want a few more bucks from Tampa and St. Petersburg while triple-dipping in both MLB revenue sharing and any potential public funding from another city. Who do you think you are? A French royal declaring that the poor can eat cake as they starve? Guess what, buddy? You can't have your cake and eat it too. A performer that tries to please everybody will leave no one satisfied. This is what the Rays are trying to do. They want to oblige St. Petersburg's lease in a half-assed manner while seeking new blood money elsewhere. And they will more than likely fall flat on their faces doing so. Baseball will probably play along with it because Rob Manfred is a spineless cuck and the potential for a few extra bucks is there. But the damage to an already damaged brand will be severe. When I speak of the Rays, I have no issues with the players, the fans, or how they run their baseball ops. Those parts of the team are to be respected. But I sincerely hope that they fail miserably in all aspects for as long as they try this bullshit. They are leaving several cities out to dry. They are not negotiating in good faith. And their efforts not only cast a dark cloud on the team, but on the sport as a whole. Ideally, Stuart Sternberg would be flung into the Gulf of Mexico for a savior that will move the team to Tampa proper, where they will flourish with a new stadium. However, that seems to be a pipe dream at this point in time. Just remember this. The problem isn't with the fans in Tampa Bay. It's the organization itself. The endless road offers no rest for the weary. The Rays will learn this the hard way. I hope for their sake they recognize the error of their ways before then.
Talk about a short leash. 73 pitches, 2 hits, 9 strikeouts. Snell can't believe it. As Kevin Cash said, these guys need short memories and thick skin because this is the way we do it. Here's a play at the plate. Throw home too late. Dodgers lead. Betts scores.